The Trump-Netanyahu Accord gave Israel what it wanted the most, the release of all of our live hostages. Beyond that, the accord itself isn't perfect. Nothing in politics ever is. But under current circumstances, it is the best possible option for ending the war. But is the war really ending? It may appear as simple as 1, 2, 3, but keep in mind that there is a greater darkness than the one we fight, lurking in the background. Hi, I'm Daniel Seaman. Thank you for joining me here on Straight Up at JNS Studios in Jerusalem, Israel. Policy and diplomacy are not magic. They are processes that must be tested and evaluated over time. The Trump Accord is meant for the long haul. It offers evaluation, periodic assessment, and adherence to realities in order to move forward with its goals. Western society is shaped by consumerism. It has been programmed for immediacy. We crave short-term satisfaction, instant returns. We want results now, satisfaction now, peace now, immediate gratification. We can all do basic arithmetic. 1 + 2 = 3. But few of us have the patience for even the simplest algebra, where the answer isn't visible and the variables take time to reveal their meaning. In our craving for immediacy, we've abandoned the long game, the very mindset of patience required to build, defend, and endure. This is a problem, as we are not alone on the world stage. The Islamic world is also involved. Hence, if you got it, my algebra allegory. Unlike the West, Islam plays the long game, quietly, patiently, toward a goal of global supremacy. The events in Israel are connected to global events. The goal of our enemies is still focused on the annihilation of Israel, but through other means. Israeli journalist Eldad Beck, who I've interviewed on this show before, gave a searing analysis on social media this week about the process of inversion used against Jews for generations. Political and moral inversion, a historical process that made the Holocaust possible, and how that's being weaponized once again today against us. Eldad writes that the Holocaust didn't erupt in a vacuum. It was preceded by years of demonization, propaganda that stripped Jews of their humanity. The persecuted were cast as persecutors. The victims of Jew hate were portrayed as warmongers, global conspirators, the root of all suffering. And after the Holocaust occurred, the inversion continued. Jews were blamed for their own destruction, accused of exaggerating the scale of their suffering, of inventing the Holocaust to steal land, and even committing a Holocaust themselves. This inversion tactic is alive and well today. It's the backbone of a global campaign against Israel. The mass movement to liberate Palestine isn't about coexistence. It's about stripping Israel of its human dimension, portraying the Jewish state as a genocidal monster, and recasting its attackers as the victims. Eldad concludes that this is a process of psychological softening of global opinion for the next phase, the preparation for the dismantling of the Jewish state. Well, those driving this inversion are not just fringe activists and anonymous trolls, but academic, media, social elites, together with Islamic billionaires, states as well as heirs to terror empires. Yasser Arafat, the PLO leader, left his daughter an inheritance of $8 billion. $8 billion. Where does a lifelong terrorist accumulate billions of dollars? Yasser Arafat, like Abu Mazen today, and all the senior figures of Hamas and Islamic terrorist deception industry, grew rich off of the suffering of their own people and off the gullibility of the West. Just like Salah Ali Jafrawi. You may know him as Fafo. He used social media and Hollywood-style branding, what we call Pallywood or Gazawood, to play on Western guilt. He raised $10 million in donations, supposedly for a Hamas hospital in Gaza. He then gloated in Arabic online about how he conned the idiot donors, celebrating how the money went to his pocket. Hamas killed him, not because he lied to the West, but because he kept the money from them. The left embraces Islam as a moral ally. The right now sees it as a financial partner, and both are foolish. Islamists will gladly take the profits, but for them, profit is a means to an end, Islamic supremacy. Israel is their first means to that end. They infiltrated Western liberal thought, distorted it, exploited it. Now they're doing the same with capitalism, using Western values to gain influence. This is the machinery that we're up against, a movement that exploits Western polarization, of left versus right to advance its agenda. It rides the moral superiority of the left and tempts the financial desires of the right. It plays both sides, and it plays them well. Qatar, who are behind the Hamas and the Jew demonizing across the West, find themselves as sponsors of a permanent peace agreement brokered by President Trump. And just like with Turkey, they haven't been asked to renounce their hatred. They haven't been held accountable. And yet they're entrusted with the future of the agreement. An agreement that, if we're not strict about its implementation of its different phases, could work against the Jewish state. It is up to Israel then to make sure that the 2025 Sharm el-Sheikh conference doesn't turn out to be 1938 Munich. October 7th proved to the Arab Muslim world that even with limited resources, Israel's existence can be shaken. That cursed day has become mythological, a symbol of hope for those who dream of Israel's destruction. So no, the war of the past 2 years hasn't ended. It's still adapting. On the bright side, though, even in the face of existential threat, something remarkable has emerged. Among those who suffered directly, hostages held by the Islamic enemy, who pressured them to abandon their faith while in captivity, we saw a fierce reformation of their Jewish identity. They describe how while in the tunnels, they clung to prayer, to kosher laws, to Shabbat, to reciting the Tefillin prayer every morning, and stood tall in their refusal to convert. Among our soldiers, we saw a quiet embrace of Jewish symbols as well. Among the Israeli public, a growing respect for our heritage. There is a vocal minority, echoed by the media, who remain tethered to their hedonistic left-wing ideals, unmoved, unchanged, as if the ground beneath them hadn't shaken at all. And this isn't just an Israeli phenomena. It's a Western one. The enemies of Western liberalism, the radical Marxist left and the political Islam, have found common cause in weakening the very foundations that once made free societies resilient. They attack faith, family, tradition, and identity because they know these are the pillars that allow a community to stand up to tyranny. The left, in its obsession with deconstructing every norm, has hollowed out the moral core of Western civilization. They have emptied religion, national pride, and the nuclear family of meaning, and of the idea that some things are worth defending. Islamists, meanwhile, exploit this vacuum. They ride the wave of moral relativism, cloaking their supremacist ambitions in the language of human rights. They weaponize Western guilt, infiltrate our institutions, and use our freedoms to dismantle our defenses. Survival, real survival, demands patience, process, discipline. The enemies of liberty understand this. They play the long game. Trump and his administration, Netanyahu and his government, they also understand this, and they are focusing on the long run. And if we don't relearn how to think long term, how to build, not just react, we will lose more than wars. We will lose the ability to even recognize what's worth fighting for. So what do we do with all of this? We remember that our religious and national identity isn't a luxury, it's a shield. That values aren't a mathematical abstract, but the backbone of resilience. Just like they invert reality regarding Jews, our enemies want to confuse our conscience and paralyze our will, hoping for our collapse. But we must never forget who we are. This war isn't only fought on battlefields. It is a battle every single one of us is taking part in, for truth, for identity, and for Western civilization. Israel is just the first domino. So talking about Islam and what is its goals, what is it doing, we all have different ideas, but I think we need to be more focused on what it truly is about. And I thought there's no better person than the expert, as far as I know, on the topic. It's Dr. Mordechai Kedar. I'm sure many of you have heard him, seen him. Dr. Kedar is from the Bar-Ilan University, an expert on Islam and on the Middle East. And I would like this morning to talk to him about the Islam. Where is it going? Where are we going here in the Middle East? And have his insights on this matter. So, Shalom, Mordechai. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So let's start with the major thing right now, the agreement, the accord that's going on. How do you see this? Are you do you join the optimism that's at least being expressed by Trump and his people and even by the Israeli government?
Well, there is a rule in organizational sociology which says that the more parties are involved in one project, the less are the chances that this project will come to its end, a good end. Just to explain, if one party is involved, means you are doing something, the chance that you finish it is 100% because you decide, and as long as you go on with this project, it will be fulfilled. If there are two, the chance is 50%. Why? Each and every one of these two parties can decide to quit and to leave and to torpedo the project. If you have 10 partners, the chance is 10% because each and every one has the opportunity to torpedo the project. So this is the rule. The more parties, the more the chance that this project will not be accomplished. Here, when we talk about Gaza and the agreement which the Americans so nicely tailored, you can see like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 parties, taking part in this. Israel on one side, Hamas on the other side, which also has to agree to something. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey. And I'm not sure that this is the end of the list. Each and every one has its own interests, has its own objectives, has its own ideology, and sometimes it's conflicting within this group. For example, the Turkish Qatari axis are willing to preserve the rule of Hamas over Gaza. This is what they're clearly saying it, and they will do whatever they can in order to perpetuate the Hamas rule over Gaza. I tend to believe that Saudi Arabia and the Emirates are totally against it because from the principal point of view, the Muslim Brotherhood and Saudi Arabia are enemies. Add to this, the Emirates, which share with Saudi Arabia the same idea. So, on one side, you have Qatar, Turkey, who will do whatever they can in order to preserve Hamas rule over Gaza, while Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, who will do whatever they can in order to kick Hamas out, especially from the power positions. Add to this Israel with its own interests. Add to this America with its interests. So when you put into one stage so many conflicting interests, you have really to pray for the success of this structure, which, in my view, it will come to some kind of conflict within Gaza, either between Hamas and some parties like Saudi Arabia and the Emirates who want to kick them out, or between the partners, means between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, or between Qatar and the Emirates, about what the objectives and what the role of Hamas will be tomorrow, literally tomorrow. And this is why, in my humble view, this has no chance to succeed. And after a while, when some parties will see that they cannot achieve their goals, they will just withdraw. America will sink in other problems like in China or Ukraine, whatever. And the attention of the administration will be diverted to some other arena in the world. And the whole Gaza issue will remain in ruins as it is for who knows how many years to come.
I think that's an accurate assessment of it. And I think that Israel was smart to join with this. And also, first off, we got our hostages back. But beyond that, because there's so many conflicting ideas and positions of the Arabs themselves, we just have to stand back and wait. And then not be seen as we're the ones trying to disrupt this. And it works in our favor. But I'm sort of curious, and I think many of our viewers are also. What led the Arabs to all come to this suddenly? Is just because of Trump's personality, or was there some kind of thinking behind it? We know that 2 weeks before this was announced, they had this gathering of all the Arab countries after we attacked Qatar, and they were talking about creating this kind of NATO, Arab Islamic NATO. Suddenly, they're not talking about that anymore. So, what brought them to this agreement in the meantime?
Look, they understood that the nature of the current American administration is totally different compared to the previous administrations, even the administration of Trump in his first term. They understand that this administration is working in order to succeed not tomorrow, today. The timetables of this administration is so short. They want, Ms. Trump and his aides, they want to see results today, not tomorrow, today. This is, first of all, totally against the culture of the Middle East. The Middle East is the culture of the desert. The desert doesn't go anywhere. The weather in the desert tomorrow will be just as it is today. The lack of water will be tomorrow as it is today. There is nothing to rush for. There is no reason to hasten your steps because anyway you're going to stay in the desert. So the mindset of the Middle East is take a break, sit aside, take a rest, and let time pass. Donald Trump, he thinks from totally, absolutely opposite point of view. He wants everything now. Now, why? Because this is what he wants. He wants everything like instant. He wants everything to be achieved like in an hour, no more than an hour. He gives to the parties, go do your homework and come to me within an hour with the solution. And look, it could be superficial. It could be ineffective because you don't really deal with the problems in the way which they need. But he wants to see results. So the parties create results, make faces if they are running forward with him, agree to everything. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. And they come to the arena very, in a very urgent way. And now, let's work it out. Let's see how we can give Trump the solution or the cake which he wanted to eat. So, and this is why, in my humble view, too many conflicting interests are being put into this cake that there is no way that this cake will be edible at the end of the day. But at least he has a good feeling that he made peace in 8 arenas in the world, or as recently was. Of course, he has one very hard nut to crack, and this is the Putin-Zelensky fight or war. I'm not sure that he is looking at it as Russia-Ukraine. I think for him it's much more personal problem of personal war between Putin and Zelensky, in my humble view. But yes, because if you reduce the war from war between Russia and Ukraine to a war between two persons, just get these two persons into one room, give them to drink, and if they want to go to the bathroom, they should sign peace agreement beforehand, and then will be let out to the bathroom. So this is more or less the way he tries to play the international game in order to achieve the situation that by November 2026, for the midterm elections, he will come to the American voters and show them a totally different world compared to the world which he got from Biden 2 years earlier. In order to show, hey, okay, now vote for me, vote for my Congress members, vote my senators, because this is the midterm elections, in order not to become lame duck.
Well, I think this is, I'm not sure where he's going with this and what his true intentions are. I want to keep it with what's happening here. I think this is a good opportunity for us, at least, to take advantage of his willingness and his wanting to have an agreement here, and the changes that have occurred in the Middle East. And I think you'll agree that there have been tectonic changes in the Middle East over the past 2 years. The major issue that at least they said was the issue for the past 77 years was always, or more truly since the Six-Day War, was the so-called Palestinian issue. Do you feel, like I just heard the other day, Arabs saying that that's no longer the most important issue? Do you see changes occurring around that at the moment? Could there be a resolution to this first with Gaza and then, of course, Judea and Samaria? Before going on to the wider aspects of Islam, I want to see if, in your thoughts, is there a change occurring here? Can there be some kind of a direction that changes the thinking, at least of the last 30 years since Oslo?
Well, no doubt that the war in Gaza brought two, I would say, even conflicting results. One is just to remind you how Israel lived until the war as a frightened state. We were so much afraid of the stockpile of missiles in Lebanon, 150,000 missiles. Some of them are accurate or precise missiles. We were afraid of Gaza. And we were afraid of Hezbollah from, as you remember, 3 drones who took pictures of the Karish platform actually bent Lapid to sign the maritime borders with Lebanon. And Israel was afraid of Iran. Israel was afraid of militias in Syria and in Iraq, in Yemen, of course. And at the end of the 2 years of war, we attacked Iran without any restriction. We destroyed the strategic weapons of Hezbollah. We destroyed Hamas almost totally. The Houthis are licking their wounds anyway. Syria is off the list of the Iranian supporters. The militias in Iraq are without any weapons today. So definitely Israel succeeded to change the Middle East dramatically. From Middle East under the Iranian Shi'i threat to a Middle East which is free from Iranian threats, or almost totally. But now what you can see is the Sunni axis comes from under the ruins. Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all these are Sunni players, now start to take over what Israel left from the Middle East. Because since there is no vacuum, political vacuum, here they are sucked into this vacuum which Israel created, and now they are trying to run the place. However, they have conflicts within them. Qatar and Turkey on one side, Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates on the other side. And this now, the tensions between these two blocks or sub-blocks are competing with each other in Gaza, thanks to the fact that we enabled them to come to Gaza after we dealt with Hamas the way we did. So these are the tectonic changes of the Middle East. I have no idea where it leads to, because it could lead to a situation where Gaza becomes just like what President Trump dreams, becomes a peaceful state, peaceful piece of land with big harbor, which can serve the corridor between the East and the West. And this is a good, let's say, fulfillment of a dream, which Israel could definitely benefit from and even maybe be part of. However, if we get back to the theory of too many cooks and one in one kitchen, if this doesn't work, Gaza will remain in the ruins for who knows how many years. It will remain maybe even with Hamas or other militants controlling the place. It will remain to be miserable, a piece of land which will export problems to us, maybe to Egypt as well. And this is the also possible scenario. So this also might be a result of what happens today. The American administration either will be changed or will enter the second term. I have no idea. So we have to be prepared to all kinds of scenarios vis-a-vis Gaza, and Israel should know how to behave in Judea and Samaria in a way which will not lead us to the same situation of Gaza. And this is, I think, is the most important conclusion which we have to derive from what happened in the last 2 years in Gaza. As long as the place is run by any ideology, either nationalistic ideology like the PLO, or Islamic ideology, as it is in Hamas, both ideologies are totally against the mere existence of the state of Israel. And this is why there are either active terror organizations like Hamas or terror organizations which are waiting for the opportunity like the PLO. But they are terror organizations. Israel has or must go forward in another thing, which will pull the rug under both the PLO and Hamas. And this is the emirate solution. Means to establish an emirate in Hebron for the clans of Hebron. And this emirate could be like Dubai or Abu Dhabi. Another emirate in Nablus for the clans of Nablus, which are different clans. Another one in Ramallah, another one in Jericho, another one in Tulkarm and Kalkilia and Jenin as well. While Israel should forever remain in the rural areas, annex them to Israel, with 100% of what they call the settlements. And all these emirates will be either totally independent or have autonomy. This point should be decided. And if they want to have a federation, let them have a federation. This means the PA could turn into a federation or federal structure, as long as they don't have territorial contiguity.
Right.
And each and everyone has agreements with Israel about import, export, water supply, sewage, electricity, whatever they need. Israel will be with them in a peace agreement. The clans of Hebron already announced that they want an emirate in Hebron, which will join the Abraham Accords to that degree. Unlike the PLO and the PA, which is totally against the Abraham Accords, just like Hamas.
Is there support for this among, let's say, those, the Emirates, for example, who are part of the Abrahamic Accords? Would they support something like this, or they don't want to touch it at the moment?
Who?
The Emirates, the countries that are part of the Abrahamic Accords, would they accept the point of this, or they want it to be up to the Palestinians, say?
The clans of Hebron have nothing to do with the clans of Nablus or Jericho. They are different culture, different language even, different mindset, different interests, and they care for themselves. And this is exactly just like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Kuwait and Qatar. Each one was established on the local clans, and they are running the place for the good of the clans and the good of everybody else. And this is the same idea which I want to implement in Judea and Samaria in each and every city. And this will give them good life and will give us security and good life as well.
Well, that sounds promising, and I think the direction we've gone in the past 2 years maybe is strengthening that direction. I wanted to take a moment, and because the issue of Islam is greater than just the Middle East. And we know that there are differences among them. You mentioned the Shia and the Sunni, the different national aspects of it. But when it comes to Europe, for example, or they're spreading in Africa, also now in the United States, they're focused on one thing, on the supremacy of Islam. There are differences amongst them. They're not bringing it Or maybe you're more experienced in this than I am. Maybe I'm not identifying it in what is happening in Europe. But they have a goal for Europe. It's not an innocent movement there. Can you elaborate on that?
Not at all. Migration to the lands of the infidels is one of the facets of jihad. Jihad actually is a very large concept which aims at having the word of Allah, the supreme, and the words of the kuffar, means the infidels, under it. This is the philosophic aim or goal of jihad. It could be jihad by the sword, which is the, as we say, bombings and everything. But jihad could be also with other means, like da'wah, means inviting people to Islam, to spread Islam by da'wah. Nice, be nice. By migration, by birth rate. High birth rate is another kind of jihad to spread Islam over the lands which are not yet Islamic. Academic jihad, what we see in the campuses, which is supported by Qatar. Arson jihad, when they burn churches, synagogues, groves, whatever, like this. Arson jihad. There is economic jihad. BDS is part of the economic jihad, which is, discussed in the Sharia for hundreds of years already, how you can manage the jihad through economy or economic means. And there are all kinds of jihad, media jihad. Al Jazeera, for example, by its own definition, is a media jihad. To recruit people to the jihad through the media or social media, it's also kind of jihad. All these facets are different phases of jihad. So, since there is interpretation of jihad that each and every Muslim, wherever he is, whoever he is, and whenever he lives, he or she should conduct the jihad the way which they are able, either to boycott Israeli or American or other infidels products, not to buy them, in order to weaken them financially, or even praying for the success of the jihadists is part of the jihad.
Praying, you say? So, praying,
that somebody will pray to Allah.
Right, in the streets.
That he will.
What we're seeing in Europe and in the United States and in Times Square, where they're all out, and it's, they have more mosques now in the Western world than they've had ever, and yet they're still taking to the streets. This is not innocent. This is a deliberate step on their part to show their supremacy.
That they are taking the public sphere as part of spreading Islam and converting the Dar al-Harb into Dar al-Islam. By good means. We don't have to kill people, just wait a generation. And anyway, they are going to nowhere because they don't bring children to the world. And, they have time. It could take 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40, 100. Doesn't really make any difference because there is a verse in the Quran which says, Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. Allah is with those who have patience. And they have patience. They can, do it in 10 years, 100 years. Doesn't really make any difference. So this is how they see the future. They see the future of Europe as Islamic future, at least Western Europe, where they are allowed to come in big numbers and stay and settle. And in the United States as well.
Yeah, it's happening now.
It was proven time and again that the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States is to Islamize the United States of America. Again, it could take many years, but this is the direction, this is the objective. And there are enough evidence, documents which were found, video clips which they talk about converting the United States to Islam. So we have to believe them because they mean what they say and they say what they mean.
People forget that we experience either directly in the past century or through our grandparents, etc. This is our realm of experience of history. People forget that the past 100 years was, I would say, maybe 90 years was a bit unusual with Islam, because up until World War I, they controlled a lot of the Middle East. They were in full force. What brought the decline of Islam then, or what led to the decline of the Ottoman Empire, etc.? And is there something we can take from that or address, or are we going to be facing a rise of Islam?
Look, whatever they do will bring them to a better place. If they stay in their own countries and they the Islamists take over the countries like Syria, like Turkey, which was once, when it was established 100 years ago, it was a totally secular country with the secular ideology of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Look at Turkey today, run by the Muslim Brotherhood-like organization, Erdogan, who is thinking just like Hamas. Definitely, it's a big achievement to the political Islam. Look at Syria, was under Assad, who was not even a Muslim. Assad was an Alawite, and he fought the Islamists viciously. He and his father, also since the 70s of the last century. Look at Syria today, taken over by ISIS graduates like Giuliani and his friends. Okay, look at Qatar, a country which was established as a country which a tribal country like Abu Dhabi, like Dubai, and turned into a the worst terror supporter in the whole world. Sponsors terror organizations like Hamas and others, and of course buys politicians, buys the academic institutions, buy media outlets, buys the influencers on right, left, and center. Even Witkoff, the aide of President Trump, is connected to them financially. So this is Qatar. Iran, which was secular under the Shah, became Islamist. So you cannot ignore the phenomenon that countries which were 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago, were secular, were much more, I would say, normal in Western terms, became Islamist in the homelands. And in the migration lands, like Europe and America as well, they are settling, they're coming in big numbers, they are settling, they create all kinds of organizations, and they influence the foreign policy of the countries to a degree that France, Britain, Spain, who are definitely suffering from very high migration, divert their foreign policy from being pro-Israel to be anti-Israel, supporting the Palestinian state, only because the masses of voters demand the change of the policies in these countries. So they are occupying not only the land of the infidels in Europe, they occupy also the politics of the infidels, or what they see. They occupy the public sphere, they occupy the economy, because in many places, branches of economy are in the hands, like transportation, like groceries, all these things. They are being taken by the migrants, who happen to be 95% of them are Muslims, who are coming from the Arab and Islamic countries. So this is actually what happens. We have to see it in the broad scope to see how the world is changing, both in the homelands and in the migration lands, because of their numbers, which are exorbitant. 1.5 billion Muslims are in the world, and the world is, very flexible when it comes to moving of populations today, unlike how it was like 50 years ago, with borders, clear borders. Now the borders of Europe are being erased. All kinds of rules and regulations allow masses to come to Europe even without invitation, without papers, by smuggling the into these countries. And the only European countries will remain are the Eastern European, like Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, Poland, all these countries which are keen to keep their culture and not allow the migrants to come to these countries. They will remain for much longer time as countries, as states, as nations, way after Europe will go down the drain. Western Europe will go down the drain.
They were also the countries that withstood the invasion of Islam several hundred years ago, so maybe that'll be their role once again.
Yeah, apparently this kind of the culture of these nations, which they are proud of, unlike French, unlike British, unlike Hollanders, unlike Spaniards, who are sacrificing their culture on the altar of, I don't know what, to bring migrants to work for them, to feed them, to dress them, because those people don't want to work. They want only to be lawyers and accountants and media people and politicians and artists. That's all. While all the other professions are being left for the migrants in Germany and to the west from Germany. And this is, unfortunately, how they give up on their culture. And there is another culture, in North Africa and in the Middle East, which are waiting to see Europe going down the drain in order to take it over. And this is what they do.
And I tell people on my monologues that Israel is the example of how to stand up to it. The fact that we maintain our identity, maintain our beliefs, and maintain the structure of our society, though there are those who are trying to undermine us as well. That's the one way to stand up to this. And the quicker Europe understands that, the quicker they'll be able to, if they can, to block this attempt of invading them.
Yes, and in what you see in Europe is already the backlash of this phenomenon, where we saw in London millions are streaming to the streets with a Union Jack flag,
Correct.
Because they do care about Britain. They want to leave Britain British. In Germany, you see the AfD party. In Sweden, you see the Democratic Party. You see Geert Wilders in Holland. And so, yes, there is some kind of a backlash in Europe against the migration. However, those, let's say, right-wingish people, they don't make more children than the left. So, okay, today they are saying what they say and they act as the way they act. What will be in 30 years?
Well, here in Israel, we say that children are our future. Michael Jackson said that.
Right.
They have to adopt that as well. Dr. Mordechai Kedar, we could have spoken for much longer, but we'll keep these general ideas. I want to thank you for being with us here today. And
thank you so much.
Continue with your important work of bringing the knowledge to the people who want to listen to it. So I appreciate your being here with us on Straight Up. I'm Daniel Seaman, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I'll be back with you next week. Thank you.